I ask them to get a piece of paper, write all their bad experience on that piece of paper.
On this podcast, can your bad experience with math sabotage your kids' math success? Welcome to the Speaking of Math podcast, episode number 51 by Door to Math. This podcast is devoted to all things math education and how parents can be a positive factor in their kids' math learning. Math is the gateway to many professional careers as well as confidence and personal growth. Find more information at www.doortomath.com or on our Facebook page at Tucson Math Doc or on YouTube and Instagram at Tucson Math Doc also. So let's get on with the topic of the day. We want to talk about regrets today.
I heard a story in the morning from Joe Austin. So mother dog was pregnant and she got hit by the car. So her back leg was broken, but she crawled herself back home. But the leg was never really healed properly, so she just kept on crawling. So when the pups were born, they were healthy. But then within 2 weeks, all the pups start crawling too, because they thought that's how you're supposed to walk. Right? So the owner took all the pups in and said, oh, did the pups get hurt too then? It turned out the pups are perfectly fine. But all they see was the mother crawling, so they crawled. They think that's the way it's supposed to be. So if you think math is hard and you do whatever little things you do, your kid is going to assume math is hard too then.
So the kids copies unwittingly or wittingly every little thing that you do, and when it comes to math, if you don't have a strong conversation about math, they're not going to have a strong conversation even if they're perfectly capable of doing the math.
Right. They wouldn't know because all the exposure they got, it was math supposed to be hard. So just like fear and faith, both are multipliers. Both are just objective multiplier, but what they multiply will depend on your view.
All right. Well, I can't, if I don't like math or if I has some conversations about math, I can't really fake it. Yeah, I don't want my children to follow down the same path as me. What do?
I think for those parents or those of us who struggled in math, the first thing to do is be aware. Like, we have a specific point of view that's unique to our own experience. We got to own that part. So if I think math is gray, my communication, whenever I talk about math, I tend to use words associated with the color of gray. But our view that it's gray, it's our view only. So if we can own that piece, at least to say, hey, I think math is hard, but I have no idea what your math experience is going to be because you're not me, I'm not you. And I want to do whatever I can do to give it the different color for you that belongs to you.
But don't the kids copy what you do and not what you say?
They do, and I think that's where the snare part comes in. If we own to our own experience, we have a shot at least to give our children a different color for the math.
All right, so first step is be aware. I'm aware that I'm not good at math, I don't like math, but I want to give a different message to my child and not fake it. What's the second step?
Second step, I think, this is a lot to ask parents because we're busy people. We have parents, we have co-workers, we have our own purpose, we have church groups, we have volunteer things. We have a lot of things trying to add on to one to deal with our own math past experience. You would think, wouldn't that be just school's job? This is where I think I'm ruffling a lot of feathers. I really think school is an entity that's on the side helping us to do the job. But us, we as parents brought those helpless beings into our lives. We are we're the captain of the ship. We needed to figure out, I don't have a powerful thing with math. What is it that I can do so that my kids have a different experience? Whether being hiring a tutor, find a family friend, have a different school, whatever it takes. I think we owe our children a chance to have a different color for math.
Okay, so be aware and do something. So to me, it almost sounds like if I have shackles on me and I can't run, I really don't want to pass on these shackles to my child, and I can't fake it that I don't have these shackles, but I can make sure my child doesn't have these shackles. Now, we have 2 steps. Be aware to do something. What's the 3rd step?
I would think that your confidence as a parent can either comfort your children or your lack of can deepen their fears. So I always see where parents, because we know deep down, that sounds really catch-22. If I know, I wouldn't have a lack of confidence, and I have a lack of confidence because I don't know. But I think if for me anyway, I'm sharing my personal experience. Sometimes when all those pieces are pulling me everywhere, I sit still. There's that verse that says, be still. And I think that stillness will give us the almost innate confidence to know what to do. And what has worked for me is be still.
Okay, be aware, do something, and have confidence that it is possible, and what's worked for you is be still. That sounds a lot up in the air, but I'm down on the ground. I have a kid who may or may not be struggling with math. What can I say to myself each day?
Okay, so if you're one of those parents that come to my office, the thing I would say to the mom, they bring and say, I don't like math and I had a horrible experience. So first thing I do is I ask them to get a piece of paper, write all their bad experience on that piece of paper. So it's not in their mind. They're aware it's just a one interpretation of math. Putting something on concrete piece of paper allows you to have better perspective, so it's not thoughts flowing and bombarding everything that comes, every other thoughts, right? Since it's on piece of paper, sometimes I save that piece of paper, I take a picture of it, and the next time when they come in, they laugh at that, because that fear or whatever they think is in their head now is on the piece of paper.
All right, that speaks to me. So write bad experiences with math and look at them. Once you do that, what do you do?
Some parents say, okay, I'm tired of my math fear. Teach me something. So sometimes we talk about the milestone of K through 12. What's the 5 big things, right? Sometimes we talk about where the junction is going to be really hard. Sometimes we talked about calculating 10% tips. If it's a good service, it's 20% tips. I use a tiny little bit of math, whatever they are open to learn. And I think once it's kind of like swimming, right? You take a look at this water, it frightens you, but it dip your toe in there, put your hand in there, drop by drop, there will be one point you go, you know what, I'm going to take a math class. I'm going to go back to school. I am going to take a look at the sit in the session with my child. And I've seen moms, especially moms, transform their experience with their math through their kids.
All right, so it can be a positive experience for their parent if they go on a journey with the child through math rather than have the fear. Now, do you share the list that you write over your bad experiences with math with your child?
I do. I encourage the parents come to my office, share that, because then once you put it on the piece of paper, I think something happened in our mind that we can see it more objectively. It's my interpretation to things that happen. I can very well have a different interpretation. Maybe my teacher was having a crappy day, right? He or she said whatever she or she said, because not I couldn't do math just because they were having a crappy day. The fact that you put something concrete on a piece of paper allows your mind to say what other things could gone wrong that has nothing to do with me, right? As we grow older, that comes with age is the wisdom.
And do you take your child through the same process? Maybe if they're old enough, 5th or 6th grade, ask them to write down their bad experiences with math?
Yeah, that's the first thing I do with the kids. Kids are sponges, right? If you can't squeeze the bad part out, they want to soak up something good. So writing it on kind of like a squeezing the sponges, and you squeeze the bad parts out and say, oh, let me put something better that's more productive in there for you.
All right, and more than once or just once?
Usually my experience has been for kids, once is plenty. For our adults, because we've had the same thinking pattern for so long, that's why I think, believing math is hard is a trap that snared us, many of us as children, right? But as adults, we do have to go back, and I believe whatever we're trying to achieve, it's always on the other side of the fear.
And how much does my belief about math impact how well my child will do in math?
I don't think it's my belief itself. It's my awareness of my belief. I think that's the big thing. We as adults, if we can get to that awareness, it's my awareness of my fear. That if I have the awareness, I can guide my child away from my own fear.
And if I don't cope or deal with my awareness, how much would that impact my child?
I would say huge. I think the things we're not aware we do, it's kind of like you put glasses on, right? If the glasses has rosy color and we don't know we have glasses on, then everything I say about math, it's come from that color. And that color that you pass on without knowing passing on, I think that does a lot of harm.
So it can do as much harm as a bad teacher, for example, or improper study habits. It's up there.
I think it's up there, and that's that part always for me is the miss the potential, because I think kids are kind of like a white canvas. They don't really have any perceived ones. Now, if our experience as math is always black and gray, we unknowingly will paint a lot of black and gray on their canvas.
And can it go the other way? So say, for some reason, I have had a good experience with math and never thought math was hard. Does that carry through across to my children?
The flip side of having had a good experience engineering, a typical engineering dad, there's a missed gap of understanding why math is hard for usually it's an engineering dad, for his daughter, for example. For those parents, I always say, you got to take your glasses off, whether it's a rosy one or black and gray one. You got to take it off and really see from your kid point of view. If your kid is really struggling, it says nothing about you as a parent or parenting. It just says the combination for that child's learning math is not found yet, right? It's just a journey to find what the combination lock number is.
So unfortunately, I hear that it doesn't really go the other way. If I don't have awareness that I have a bad conversation with math, it's going to pass on. And if I have a good conversation with math, but I don't have awareness that my child might be different, it might pass on there. So it's all, what I'm hearing, it's awareness one way or the other.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I mean, I wish we have like some sort of math DNA little microchip just to plug it in, but that's not the case.
All right, so this whole podcast pretty much is about self-awareness and how it can impact your child in math.
I believe so. I think that examining our own belief and be aware how that belief come about and communicate it successfully to our children is number one step.
All right, let's summarize. We're talking about what your beliefs are and how that impacts your children in math. The biggest thing I heard today as a parent is self-awareness. If I'm good in math, if I'm not good enough, it's important to be self-aware one way or the other. That sounds like about 80 or 90% of it. After that, once I have the self-awareness, do something, either I can do something one way or the other. And the third thing that I heard is if I have self-awareness, I'm able to do something, and that it is possible to succeed in math, that confidence can come. And a practical thing I heard is to, as a parent, write down all my bad experiences with math, my fears, and so that they're not swimming around in my head and just jumping out at random times. and maybe take that exercise a little bit further and ask my child to write down her bad experiences with math so that they're not in his or her mind, but they're on a piece of paper. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think one last sentence probably is, when it comes to grades, math grades, really think of it as a tip of the iceberg, right? If it's a good grades, there's a lot of effort that went in under the bottom. If it's math struggle, that's still tip of the iceberg. So examining what's on the bottom of the iceberg, I believe, is what our parenting is called to do.
So the grades are somewhat like a canary in the coal mine.
Yes.
Okay. And on that note, until next time,
Happy parenting.